Hey everyone, welcome to another episode, or another, what is it, an episode, a podcast, a vodcast, a vlogcast?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, chat.
You know all these lingos, I'm ignorant.
It's nice, isn't it? We just get to sit out in the garden and talk and
Yeah.
it's not work, is it?
Well done, English weather, keep it up. Yeah.
So, Vipan, you were telling me today that you read something about young people.
Yeah,
Tell me what you read.
Well, it's all about, I think this week's important because it's exam results week. I think the A-level results come out this week, and it's a big time for young people. Uncertainty, pressure, and then obviously their futures seem to be laid out for them. I can remember it very well because I've had 3 children go through that same week, and I remember the pressure, the stress, anxiety, sleepless nights. I feel for young people. A big deal is made about exam results, and I'd like to just say to them that they're not defined by the exam results, but there's a lot of pressure on them to perform. And I think you can extend that, Simon, about, young people, they see things on the media, how they look, how they dress, how they talk, and it's all built up from the media pressure. And this is yet another example of performing for their peers. And it all adds the mental stress to them, really. And a lot of them really, and even if they do succeed today, then there's the pressure that carries on. I mean, it's relentless, the pressure. And my children go to university and they talk about their friends who get stressed and need mental help for help with their mental well-being. There's a lot going on for them, and I think there's a big role to play for parents. And parents can do a lot for them this week, actually. So,
what can parents do for them this week, or what could the parents? I mean, because the way I see it is it's. Sometimes it's the parents that are putting them under pressure, sometimes it's the school, sometimes it's their peers.
Yes.
So...
Well, there's a combination there, Simon, of all 3 elements, but again, parents have a massive role to play. So, okay, you could look at it in this, if we're talking about as an analogy about the chef, the children are the stars, as it were, but the sous chefs are definitely the parents, and they have a huge role to making sure that the week goes well, even if the results don't go according to plan. But the parents, they can make such a huge difference. I don't know even if the parents actually know that.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say about that. Was I think most people are really unaware of the pressure they put their children under. I spoke to my dad about playing cricket, right? And it was only like 5 years after cricket that even I became aware that if I played well, then my dad and I got on better than if I played poorly, right? It was 5 years after my career that I became aware of that.
Oh, wow.
And then it was 5 more years of me trying to talk to my dad that he became aware of that. And so we sort of unpacked this relationship over the course of time where neither of us were aware, because it's deep in the unconscious, I don't think many parents realise the pressure they put their children under because they are a result of their parents doing it, and whose parents did it, whose parents did it.
Simon, that just brings up so many memories for myself because I can just it brings back memories when I was growing up, and I felt a lot of pressure educationally wise, and from my parents, but they were so keen for us to do well. But I felt that pressure, and it put pressure on every single test at school. But then I found myself doing the same mistakes for my children. It's that you love them so much and that you care so much, but then it goes overboard that you don't know that the impact that you have on your children's well-being just because of the pressure, just by the pressure that you unintentionally exert on your children. And really, you just want to be there. So for this week, I would say a couple of things I would suggest. First of all, whatever the results, it's all good. and there's always a plan B. Whatever happens, there's always a plan B. If the results don't go according to plan A, it doesn't matter. Children need to know they are supported by and still loved as much by their parents. Okay, and that the world does not cave in just because they did not get one grade or the grades weren't.
Well, it's crazy, isn't it? Because if you actually look at the belief system around, you have to get the good grades to go to the right university, to get the right degree, to get the good job. If you actually look at the model, it doesn't mean success. I mean, there's that book. I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One was we spoke about in the failure podcast we just did on the Zoom one. We spoke about Malcolm Gladwell has a book called Outliers, and basically he's taken the top 5% most successful people and they didn't go to uni. Right, they didn't go to uni. Creative people, because the education system actually drives creativity out of people. There was that, but then also the Kobe Bryant story. I love that story, especially as a new father. You know, Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant, maybe the second best basketball player of all time. Definitely no one.
You might have something to say about that.
Well, he's not here anymore. Well, he might be around, but. And he doesn't make a basket when he's 13 years old and he's beside himself, and his dad just says to him, if you score a basket, if you score no baskets or 100 baskets, I'm going to love you exactly the same. And he said it gave him full permission to go out there and fail. I thought, blimey, as a father, there's a lesson in there, isn't there?
A huge lesson. Learning to fail or without fear is amazing. If young people can just adopt that as a mantra. But to help them to do that, obviously they need the schools play a huge role in that. But schools can play a lot of lip service, but what do they actually do about giving support? That's another question I would like to ask, but we won't talk about that here.
I think the thing with, I don't think parents realise to not have your parents' love is death to the mind. It's actually, because we've evolved, right? Like we've evolved, the deepest part of our kit within the mind, or within our hearts as well, is if your mother and your father reject you as a baby, you don't survive. Right, so basically the whole of our survival is dependent upon our parents' love, and that's ancient kit. So when you get disapproved of by your parents, and when it's number one, I mean, Jess and I, my wife and I, talk about this a lot. We go, what is unconditional love? Like, what is it? Because I think people think, unconditionally love. And then people do this, they go, I unconditionally love my children. And then they set up all these conditions, right? Like unconditional love means unconditional love.
But they think, I love my children and therefore I'm going to do this, this and this for them. However...
That's so true,
But you have to ask, the parents should ask a bit more about why are they doing it? Is it more about fulfilling their own needs and ambitions? Or was it really for the best for their children? Because if it's for the best for their children, all they need to say is, I want my children to be happy.
Yeah.
And happiness does not equate to success academically.
No, it doesn't. But you can, I was walking through, I'm not going to say a place because just in case the person's watching it, I was walking through the park yesterday. And there was a young lad playing the guitar, busking. And he was awful. Like, this guy wasn't good. And he had the typical, I'm going to
laugh, actually.
He had your typical, like, I'm going to be a little bit judgmental here, but just for the sake of getting across the image of what to conjure in your mind. He was the typical 16-year-old stoner guitar player, dropout, right? Obviously playing the guitar because he loves playing the guitar, right? But rubbish, in my opinion. Right? And I actually sat there and I thought to myself, because I've been having a few thought experiments with myself about my boys. I thought to myself, that's someone's son. Would I be happy what would I say if my son was awful at the guitar and he was like, this is what I want to do? And the only thing I could come up with was I'd have to let go. Of course I would. I would have to let go and just let it be, And I think this is where I feel very grateful to have a relationship with something bigger than myself. Call it God, call it higher power, call it source, universe, whatever you want to call it. Because ultimately, I have to let go and let God move. You know, whether you say God has a plan, like for me, my children, they have their own destiny over their life.
Yeah.
And you and I both know more that it's never a straight line.
No.
And actually, the thing that guarantees it's never a straight line.
I think yes. As you get older, I think you have these ambitions in life when you're younger that everything's going to do A follows. To get to B, you need to do A, and so it goes in a in a linear fashion. However, life isn't like that.
No.
And that what happens to a lot of children, young people, should I say, is that if a curveball is thrown at them, you know, take an extreme example, a young person is very successful with exams all his life, but then it comes to various degrees. So one, I know friends, the child didn't get into Oxford or Cambridge because up until then life had been all A's and everything had been going smoothly, but he got rejected.
Yeah.
The first time he got rejected, I think he was in his bedroom for a month.
Yeah.
It was a huge shock to him.
Yeah.
And it really affected his mental well-being. So dealing with failure is inevitable. However, some people don't have that until quite late in lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's a good thing. But then, you know, you wonder, then the parents must surely they've got a huge role to play in helping their children to understand that failure is part of life, but it's not a bad thing. Because you and I both know we've learnt the most when things have gone really bad. We're not saying that we enjoy things, that's not the point. The point is that we've learnt and grown from that experience. And I think this is the whole point of being resilient. And that's a word that we often come back to when we're having our chats, is that the feature of resilient people is that they look at failure differently to non-resilient people. Failure is seen as something that is to be accepted, and you grow and you learn from it rather than wallow and then despair from it. So there's two different paths you can take. But enjoyment, that doesn't come into it. The fact is you accept it, and it's just part of life, because that's what life is. You know, whether you learn to lose a loved one, you have failure, you have divorce, you lose a job, you don't get promotion, you lose your girlfriend. It's just part of life.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
But the way we choose to accept it, that's optional.
So I'm really interested in this idea. I think my theory around everything is we've got it completely the wrong way round, right? And it's quite, if you just look at it for a moment, you start to see insanity in the way that our beliefs work. So things like this. Anyone who's a success, truly a success, has failed lots of times.
Yeah.
So the way to succeed is to fail, right? But properly, right? Not recklessly, is to fail, right? Why do you think parents, and I'm going to speak about 90% of parents, why do you think 90% of parents hate it when their children fail and want them to succeed all the time? When, if you were a wise parent, right, I hope one day I'm a parent, and I really hope I'm wise enough in this moment to do this. When one of my boys comes home and goes, Dad, I got 3 out of 10 on a test, I'm going to be like, that's amazing. Oh my God, did you know what I was saying about my coach? You're such a failure. He said to me, oh my God, Simon, you are such a failure. You know, we think that, like, especially at a young age, like, surely as a young person, you would want them to fail a lot. Because that guarantees when they're 40 or 50, they're going to have resilience, they're going to have wisdom. Why do parents stop their children from failing?
Okay, I mean, you made a couple of really important points there. So failure for failure's sake is we're not advocating that. We're saying fail, but you must understand why you fail. So you're being, doing the same thing 100 times isn't going to guarantee success. That's point number one. I definitely think that. So there's got to be some sort of...
So fail, but learn quickly and...
Well, learn, Whether
learn.
If it takes time, so be it, but try and understand what lessons you take from failure rather than do the same thing again and have the same knockback. But so you asked me some really important questions about parents. So there's couple of points. First of all, there's the ego. And again, parents, people, again, social media, we're comparing ourselves all the time. And we compare ourselves, we compare our children to other people and their children. But really, you are playing your own game, and you should be comparing yourself to yourself at a point in time. However, most parents, we are all guilty of looking over our shoulder or looking at someone else's children and comparing ours with them, and it's not a valid comparison, but it's inevitable we do.
Yep.
And the second point is that parents see the success of their children as being part of their own self-worth. The parents tie it inextricably to themselves, so it's quite selfish. It's nothing to do with love. It's all about how you associate your own self-worth, and whatever failings your as parents have had, subconsciously, no doubt, you project that. And it's the same with parenting on the touchline. You project your own failings and limitations, and I'm not saying that as a wise old man. I'm saying that as someone who's done that and been terrible in that respect with watching my own son, for example, play a lot of sport, football and cricket, and being terrible and being far too pushy.
Because there's something that needs to be acknowledged, isn't there? Because the number one cause of death in people, men and women, boys and girls, under the age of 35 is suicide.
Yeah.
And like, do you know, I always say that, and then I always very quickly move on to the next thought, or I say that and then I go, hello, and it's like, actually, no, just, I really, recently I've been trying to just sit with what that is without, like, and then repeating it, so it's like, because it's the number one death of people under the age of 35 is suicide.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Like, that's insane. It's just disastrous, right? And it cannot be seen that the way that we're raising young people across the board can be seen as a success. Do you know if what that statistic says, that the whole thing is wrong? You know, you'd be better off looking at the whole system as being wrong than trying to find three things that are wrong with it. With something like that, that means we're failing as parents, we're failing as institutions in education, we're failing in healthcare, we're failing in entertainment. Like, the whole effing thing is broken.
Screwed.
It has to be, if that's the case, because young people now, I've really been sitting with this recently. Now, your teenage years are the most confusing years. I mean, when those hormones hit, there's nothing more challenging in life than being a teenager. But we meet that with a load of judgment and pressure.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like the hormones hit, and we decide that the moment the hormones hit is when we're going to put people under the most pressure. So just when your hormones hit, we're going to start, you know what? Literally the day hormones hit, we're going to start testing you. We're going to create loads of exams. We're also going to put you in a league table. So governments put schools in league tables, therefore schools put individuals in league tables. Parents have league tables in their minds because they're like, oh, well, I'm in the middle of the league.
The whole life is a league table.
Of course it is. And then the whole hierarchical structure that is required, definitely, because I like Jordan Peterson. He says that, you know, there's this whole thing that hierarchy is a patriarchy, and because patriarchy is hierarchical, and feminine, I don't know, you call it matriarchy, is more like flat. But as he says, you want a patriarchy, and you want skilled workers, and you want people to become good at things, because if you need a plumber, you want the best plumber, and good plumbers should be paid more than not good plumbers. And so there's utility in it. But we stick them into these league tables and hierarchical judgments of like, you're better than him. And I've seen it in sport. You know, I masked up my insecurities as a child the same way my dad masked his up, the same way his granddad did, was by trying to be the best at sport And I unconsciously tried to be the best at cricket to win my dad's approval and to be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was a bully.
Yeah.
I was a bully on the sports field. Because if I could have a moment, I used to love it when not good batsmen would come out, because I'd not just want to get them out, I'd want to own them.
Yes.
Right now, we glorify that kind of behaviour in our sports. You know, when someone gets like, if Arsenal beat someone 8-0, you know, we go, oh, they smashed them.
It's been a long time since that.
Are you an Arsenal fan?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was a huge.
No, they're playing well at the moment.
Yeah.
It's because they've signed Jesus. Don't even get me wrong. No, you know, if you sign Jesus, oh, the headlines. I love the headlines. It's like Jesus is taking Arsenal to new heights. I think it's fantastic. But what I'm trying to get back to is like, you know, I've worked my 80% of my professional life has been in boys' schools.
Yeah.
And not just boys' schools, but private boys' schools.
Yeah.
Australian private boys' schools where it's £30,000 a year to send them to them, right?
Yeah.
Where you have an F team because the numbers are so good, and you've got the F team where some guy doesn't even know how to put his pads on.
Yeah.
And then you've got like Johnny, whose dad is an angry man's putting him under pressure, and he's a seriously good player.
Yeah.
And the last school I worked at had a flat culture where basically, you know, aside from the skills required to teach an 18 player require a coach, but the previous guy who ran the program, you know, I'm a level whatever coach. I had to work with the F team as well. It's fantastic. And everybody was about having a fair crack.
Yes.
You know, it was about having a go. Good performances weren't necessarily put up in lights that much, but team performance was. You know, and there was a real way of it working. And then I've worked in other places, which is like you get shamed if you fail.
Wow.
The successful boys are up on stage collecting bloody medals every week. And you imagine, like, if you're a crap player because you're just not that physically gifted, and every week you've got to see the physically gifted guy go up there and collect medals.
It's a way we celebrate success, individual success, without recognition enough of the team success. So, hello, you've come to listen as well, have you? Hello, darlings, hello. They've just had...
Where are we at? 22 minutes, that's good, we'll keep going.
Hello, you had a nice walk. That's what's happened to you. Hello, they've got some guests, unintended guests. Hello, darling. Are we still recording?
I'll cut that bit out, we'll just start from here. I just want to finish, because I've got to wrap up what I've said, otherwise it'll get a bit lost.
Little baby, lovable thing. She wants to come here. No, don't mess with that tripod. Sit here then. How do you want to end this piece?
I'm just going to wrap up what I said. I'll wrap it up. You have to.
Are we going to give him three things that parents need to learn then to support?
I'll wrap up what I said and then I'll ask that question.
Let me just think what I'm going to say.
Right, we have to be sitting back, otherwise the cut will look all jerky. So I think it's a really important thing for people to strive to aspire to be what is in their own hearts true for them, right? And a lot of it is about external validation, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about external validation rather than intrinsic motivation, which is like, you know, like for me, it's like you're a seed, and what is if we had a mustard seed and we had a cherry seed, they're both seeds, but the potential is within and they'll grow into something else. But it's like there's an innate potential that needs to come out in all of us, and that ultimately comes out in the right environment through creativity and support and nurture. It gets nurtured out, and it's external validation. And I this whole chat's been about parents, Vipan, and about teachers probably too, and going into exams, but also just, you know, trying to chip away at this problem of freaking suicide. What's your advice? You know, you've been a parent longer than me. What's your advice to parents during this time?
This is definitely, I would say, number one message is to show your love and support no matter what happens to the child. They need your support. They already feel frustrated and upset. They don't need you to show any of those emotions. They need a rod behind them to support them as they're slipping. So you can provide unbelievable support by being calm and showing love. That is the first point.
Nice.
And reinforce messages that to show that you still have love and belief in them, and that life isn't all about one day how you sit an exam. I think those messages do help children enormously, and then be there and be tolerant of the children, of the young people, and be more understanding. I would say is really this time of year, be understanding as well. So if the children, the young people, they show emotions that you're not particularly happy with, be mindful that what they're going through, and accept it. It's rather than admonish. Be more tolerant. I would say is really important. Support and more tolerance. Those are the two messages I would give. And listen, rather than tell your children what to do, give them support and just be that comfort blanket. They need a comfort blanket this week. They really do. And that makes such a huge difference for them. It really does.
I like that, and then I really, really like that. And then I would say, Dr. Seuss said, everything will be all right in the end.
Yeah.
And if it's not all right, it's not the end yet.
Yeah.
And I always think, one of the important things, it's like having a business or anything. You have a vision, and it's a broad vision, and then you realise that it's not a linear way. So for me, I think it's okay to have a vision for your son or your daughter's life. I think it's okay to want them to be successful, happy, have a beautiful family, to be strong, to be dedicated and devoted. But I think it's about not wanting that right now, and realising that the way to get there is usually paved with failure, and actually to let go a little bit and realise that failure is a good thing. It's a long game.
It's good. Life is a long game. You've got to play the long game. I think this is
patient.
Yes. And I think that's a really important message as well. Actually.
And then the other thing I would say is, as always, be really aware of your conditioning. Have a look at your parents, have a look at your parents, and just realise that there is this generational momentum that moves through us in every single moment. And interrupt it where possible.
Yeah.
Embrace it where you feel like you need to, but be aware of it.
Be aware. It's really important to be aware, Simon. Even one word could be interpreted the wrong way. So think before you speak.
Cool.
This week.
All right. There's
that's our little mini guide.
Cool. Mini guide to not what would you call it? Parenting.
Yeah.
I've got it all to come, mate.
Oh my God, yes.
I've got it all to come. But even now, I like my boys are only 5 months old, right? But even now, even now, I'm watching. But the thing is, I'm watching myself. So it's not having reactions to things. It's watch myself have a reaction to it. And it's like, even now, I think, even the good stuff, because strengths are going to start to appear. Like the other day, I could have sworn, right, I watched Phoenix. We had some classical music on, and Phoenix was doing this with his hands. He's going, and I said to Jess, I was like, oh my God. And then I watched this part of myself go, he's going to be a pianist. Oh my God, quickly, get the piano lessons in for my 5-month-old son, quickly. And then I was sitting there going, oh my God, all these talents are going to start emerging. And as a parent, I'm going to latch onto one of them and I'm going to try and make them into, I'm sitting there going, I've got to let go of this whole thing and let them be who they want to be.
Yeah, and you'll start seeing when you send your children to preschool, nursery, or whatever, and then you'll be looking over and saying, and then some mother or father will be saying, oh, when did your child start talking or crawling?
Oh, yeah.
You've got all that malarkey to go with.
No, yeah, well,
and it's become so competitive.
I know,
Who cares?
but my boys, they've got my genes, right? I'm 6'6".
Yeah.
So Jess took them to their first group the other day.
Yeah.
And we've already got how old are your boys? And Jess is like 5 months old and they're bigger than the 1-year-olds in the thing. And then my wife comes back and goes, I think we need to feed them less. And I was like, we're not feeding my boys less just because they're smaller than they're bigger than everybody else. I was like, we are going to have to get so used to them just being considerably bigger than everybody else.
Exactly.
All right. We'll say goodbye. Anyway.
We're still on.
Next one. Yeah, I thought we'd
All right.
keep it rolling.